Loyalty test! I don't usually eavesdrop on other people's conversations, and I have no idea what made me overhear this one. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was working in the basement on the hot water heater when I heard the phone ring. I didn't know what my wife Janet was doing at the time, and since the basement phone was nearby, I picked up the receiver. Before I could say anything, I heard my wife's voice on the second floor. "Gary, you shouldn't have called here. What if John had answered the phone?" "I would have just told him it was work-related. Don't be so jumpy. I just wanted to let you know everything's ready for tomorrow. We'll be at the Desca Motel in room 117. Get there at 1 now sharp. I'll take a bottle of chilled wine and some fresh strawberries. Don't forget to wear that black silk lingerie you were talking about." "Okay, just so no one sees us leaving work or coming back together." "You seem a little nervous. Do you have any doubts about that?" No, I'm fine. I'm just a little scared. I've never done anything like this before, and it's only natural to be nervous. I'm not going to change my mind. It's going to be fine, I promise." "Okay, but if John ever finds out about this, I'll kill myself. I have to go before he overhears anything. I'll see you tomorrow at 1 hour sharp." I hung up like they did and sat like that for about 10 minutes, going over the whole conversation over and over in my head. Why did I need to pick up that phone? Janet and I had grown up together. We got married the year after we graduated high school. She was the only girl I'd ever had sex with, and I assumed I was the only one she'd ever had sex with. She was good-looking and had a good figure. We had one son, Terry, who was in high school. We didn't have many friends, and our whole lives were spent together. I thought things were fine between us, but I guess I was wrong. I decided I didn't need to drain the hot water heater. There was some beer in the fridge in the basement. It helped ease my pain. I decided I had 3 options. I could confront her directly and cause a big emotional scene. I didn't like that. Second, I could make a few hints or clues or make a few remarks that would make her believe I suspected something. This was a little more appealing to me than the first option, but I figured it would just postpone things to a later date when I might not know about it. The third option was to just let her go through with it. I liked the last one, but with a slight modification. I decided that I would let it go as planned, but at the last minute I would give her the option to back out. If she accepts, that's fine. If not, I'll have to attack. Besides, she could go 3 ways. Maybe, if I'm lucky, she'll just change her mind and leave. I doubted that would happen. The second was to take the last chance I would give her. That was a strong maybe. The last option she had was to go through with it. As much as I hated to admit it, that seemed the most likely. Okay, now that I had that figured out, I was ready to plan my attack. It looked like I could make a game out of this, and the more I thought about it, the more excited I got. After dinner, I started making serious plans. First, I had to gather information, and then I had to make a game plan. I had worked for a security systems firm for almost 20 years. For the past year, they had been after me to take an office in Huntsville, Alabama. But Janet didn't want to move. For the last 10 years, Janet had worked for an insurance company. She was doing well, but I never liked the guy she worked with, Gary Simmons. I know now that my suspicions were well-founded. Gary was married, and his wife seemed nice enough. I was upset that he wanted my wife. My moving to Alabama would be good for Terry because he was determined to go to Auburn. Resident tuition was much more affordable than non-resident tuition. While we were eating dinner, I decided I would take the Huntsville position. It didn't matter what the outcome was the next day, I was still going to move. I'd be able to file my residency when I got there, and I'd have enough time for Terry to pay my tuition. I didn't see fit to say anything to Janet, but decided to say something to Terry after dinner. I'd let him know at work the next morning, and I could hit the road as soon as I packed. Once that was settled in my head, the rest of the plans became easier. Terry and I got along great, and when I explained that I was going to go to Alabama before the rest of the family, he thought it was a good idea. He agreed not to tell his mother about it. I didn't tell him anything about his mother's plans the next day. I still didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I was confident that everything would work out. I told Janet I needed to go to Home Depot to get a few things and left. My first purchase was a cell phone with a 60-minute business card. I was going to be making a lot of calls, and I didn't want to be tracked. I stopped at my favorite bar to see if I could get help from old high school friends who were less than respectable. It cost me $400 to buy 2 big bags of bad weed. My old high school buddy Benny told me I was taking a big risk buying so much because I could be charged with dealing. I told him that's exactly what I was counting on. One of the guys at the bar I didn't really know was Wolf Fraser. He was a mean asshole, and everybody stayed away from him if they could. He drove a Corvette, and I spotted him in the parking lot as I was getting out. I got a screwdriver out of the car, and in less than a minute I had Wolf's license plate. I knew where he worked, so I could call him in the morning. A trip to the Desca Motel followed. I stopped in the lobby, looked over the tourist attraction and restaurant counters, and took what I needed. The clerk gave me some information about the motel, including a map and phone numbers for housekeeping and room service. It was time to go home. When I got there, Janet was watching TV. I told her I had some work to do at the office, and she said she was going to shower and go to bed early because she had a big day tomorrow. While Janet was in the shower, I opened her briefcase and pulled out her day planner and phone notebook. I spent the next half hour writing down names and phone numbers. Then came the most tedious part. I had to enter all the phone numbers in speed dial on the disposable phone and on my own phone. I had a few more numbers to look up in the phone book before I was done. It looked like I had everything ready when I finally collapsed on the couch. It had been a rough night. I tried in vain to sleep. I kept thinking about what Janet was going to do and wondered what I had done wrong that made her want to do it. By the time I fell asleep, I had convinced myself that it was my fault and that I had failed somewhere. Morning came and I had mixed feelings. I made coffee and set the table. Janet came downstairs and looked gorgeous. "You look awfully good today. Is today some kind of special day at the office?" "What do you mean? I always look good." "I know you do. We read the paper over our meals." The morning's conversation was less than normal, but not enough to comment on. I couldn't tell if she was nervous or worried. "I have a lot to do today. I might be a little late for dinner," I said. "That's okay. I'll make something that will last until you get back. Is there anything special you're craving?" "No. Anything normal will be fine." It was a pathetic attempt at small talk on our part. She knew what she was going to do, and I knew what she was going to do, and we both walked on eggs. I got to work early and made all the necessary arrangements for my transfer to Huntsville. After signing all the necessary paperwork and clearing off my desk, I walked into the divorce attorney's office. I got the forms and information I would need to file for divorce if my last attempt didn't work out. I came home, packed up all my clothes and loaded them into my car, pulled the hard drive out of my computer, and took all the files and documents I thought I might need. Most of our savings and investments had been converted into valuable coins, which I also took. The banks were open by this time, so I canceled accounts and credit cards. I realized that in many ways I was acting prematurely, but I didn't have much faith in the possibility of a change on her part. I went to the flower store and ordered a dozen red roses that were to be delivered at exactly 1 hour and 15. The whole time I was looking at my watch. The timing was important. About 1:30 I went to the motel and found a good parking spot where I couldn't be seen, but the room was clearly visible. I carefully laid everything out on the front seat. Finally, Gary showed up. He got out of the car with a grocery bag that I assumed contained strawberries, a bottle of wine, and who knows what else. He walked straight to the room, then came back and filled a bucket of ice. While he was getting the room ready, I started making calls. The first one was Pizza Hut. "Hello, I'd like a large pepperoni pizza delivered to room 117 of the Desca Motel. I may be taking a shower, so make sure the guy knocks loud and long enough for me to hear him." 20 minutes is fine. Thank you. Second, There was a call to Papa John's, followed by Domino's and Godfather's Pizza. Then the call went to Golden Dragon, where I ordered egg rolls and sweet and sour pork. I assumed half of them would call back to check on the order, but that was okay because the effect would be the same. Janet hadn't arrived yet, so the next call was to the motel cleaning service, where I asked for extra towels and another ice bucket. I estimated it would take them about 15 minutes to deliver. Finally, my loving wife pulled into the parking lot. She walked down to the back of the building so her car wouldn't be too conspicuous. She got out of the car holding a small overnight bag. When she moved about 20 feet away from the door, I dialed a number. "Hey, sweetie, it's just me." "John, there's something wrong with you. You don't usually call me at work in the middle of the day." "I was thinking about you and just wanted to call and tell you I love you." "Oh, John, that's sweet. I love you too." "Okay, I'll let you get back to work. I'll see you later. Bye." "Goodbye, John, and thanks for calling." Janet hung up the phone, turned, and walked into the motel room. This was her last chance, and she had made her decision. Tears came to my eyes as I resumed my phone blitz. Phone call number 7 to the local TV station. "Hi, is this WWC-TV? Something strange is going on at the Desca Motel. If you have a truck nearby, you might want to swing by and check it out." "No, I don't know what it is, but the cops are on their way." "All right, thanks." I walked over to Gary's car. Luckily, he'd parked in a spot where I wouldn't be spotted when I replaced his license plate with the one on Wolfie's Corvette. On the way out, I called Janet's office. She had a 3:00 appointment with one Rob Kelly. "Hi, this is Rob Kelly. I had a 3:00 appointment with Janet Martin, but I have to reschedule. Could you ask her to call me as soon as possible at 961-4452? I've been trying to reach her, but the phone's busy. As soon as possible, please." The number was listed in a phone ad for a law firm specializing in divorce. I threw Gary's license plate under his car after I put the new one on. Then I walked over to Janet's car and drove it to the back of the motel. Returning to the car, I dialed the following number. "Hi, Mrs. Simmons. Your husband asked me to call you. He's having car trouble and needs you to pick him up. He's at the Desca Motel, room 117. You can call his cell phone or just call the room. The number is 961-7700, extension 117. No, I don't know why he hasn't called you. Apparently he's seeing a client, a very pretty client. Bye." Bye. Call 10 went to Acme Welding, where I asked Wolfie's boss to tell him that the white Honda in the Desca Motel parking lot had Wolfie's license plate. The next call came to the police, where I reported 2 kids changing license plates on a car in the parking lot. I mentioned that something was wrong and just asked them to check it out. I gave them Wolfie's license plate number. The first pizza delivery guy walked into the room. It looked like they had an argument, but Gary paid him and he left. The 12th call was to Janet's mother. "Hi, Mom. It's John. I don't have much time. Janet is in a motel room having sex with a man she works with. Please call her and ask her to reconsider what she's doing." "No. I can't talk about this right now. You have her cell phone number, and if you can't find her there, try calling the motel. It's 961-7700, extension 117. I know. I'm sorry, but I have to go. Please call now. Bye. Bye." 2 more pizza delivery men entered the room, and at the same time the maid brought more towels. A heated discussion ensued again at the door, but after a few minutes, everyone left. The next call was to the motel. "This is Mr. Simmons in 117. The sink in the bathroom is leaking at the bottom of the faucet, and the water on the floor is starting to get on the carpet. Can you send someone over right away?" Thank you." The big Harley roared into the parking lot, pulling alongside a string of cars. Wolfie stopped right behind Gary's car, but before he could do anything, a police car pulled up. The biker and the cop were arguing heatedly when I made my next phone call. "Mr. Granger, this is John Martin. My wife Janet works for you." "Yes, thank you. I'm glad she's a good worker, however. She is currently at the Desca Motel in room 117 with Gary Simmons, who also works for you. They're having sex there as we speak. Yes, I'm sure they are. You have a company policy against that sort of thing, don't you? I'm sure you have their cell phone numbers. Could you call them to confirm or deny that? If you can't get through, call the motel. It's 961-7700 extension 117. I no longer want my wife to work for your company, Mr. Granger, and would appreciate it if you would let her go. If it's a violation of policy, maybe Mr. Simmons should be let go, too. No, I'm sorry I had to warn you. Thank you for your time. Bye. Bye. There was a bellboy from the Oriental restaurant at the motel door. The policeman was walking to the room, and Wolfie waved his arms and shouted as he walked beside him. Call number 15 went to Janet's sister. Hello, Nancy. It's John. How are you doing? Hey, I'm in a little trouble right now. Janet's in a motel room having sex with a guy she works with, and I'm on my way home to get my Ruger. I'm going to go back and shoot them both, but I don't want the police or reporters to find Janet with no clothes on. Could you call Janet and tell her to get dressed before I get back? She's at the Desca Motel, room 117. If you can't reach her on her cell phone, call the room. By the way, I moved her car to the back of the motel. She might not be able to drive. You know, maybe you should just drive over there and pick her up. If you're there before me, you might want to take her home. No, I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. Thanks for your help. Call me as soon as you can, okay? The traffic at the room door was hot and heavy. Maintenance guy just came in to fix the sink. The delivery guy was trying to get money while Wolfie and the cop were talking to Gary. The florist was at the door trying to deliver roses, but he wasn't having much luck. It was time for me to leave. My work here was done. As I left, I walked past the television crew. I had 2 bags of grass in my car, and I didn't know what to do with them. I was going to put them in Gary's car, but I changed my mind. On the way home, I threw the cell phone and the weed into the river. I lingered outside the house just long enough to say goodbye to Terry. I told him I'd keep in touch with him and not to give his mother any trouble for the next couple days. I'd give anything to know what had gone on in the motel room in the last hour. Leaving town, I made one more call. I wasn't sure if it would work, but I tried it just in case. Hello, Gary Simmons. It's John Martin. Just wanted you to know that if you lay a finger on my wife, I will rip your balls off and shove them down your throat. Do you understand? Slurred answer. Yes, I understand. I hung up the phone and got on the highway. About 8 hours later, my cell phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Janet. Hey, John, where are you? I'm on I-81, just outside Knoxville. Why? John, what's going on? We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about, Janet. Please, John, talk to me. Janet, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, okay? Give me straight answers to all 3 questions, and then we can talk. Okay. What did I say to you when I called your cell phone today? You said, I love you. What did you do after you hung up the phone? There was a short pause. I went into the motel room. Why did you go into the motel room? There was no answer. Janet, answer me. For what purpose did you enter the motel room? There was another pause. John, I don't want to answer that. Goodbye, Janet. I hung up the phone and turned it off. I wouldn't need it for the rest of the trip. Since the company was covering all the moving expenses, I got myself a pretty nice motel room and had a nice dinner. I needed to settle in quickly, so I spent the next 2 days looking for an apartment. It was easy to get something suitable and reasonable because I'm not too picky. A new phone service and mailing address followed. I changed the name of my car and got a new driver's license. I registered to vote and then filled out a declaration of residency. I sent out all the paperwork to start the divorce. Everything went pretty smoothly, and soon I was ready to start my new job. I called Terry and gave him my new number. I asked him not to give it to his mother, but told him I would understand if she pressured him. He didn't think it would be a problem. He said she had lost her job and was very depressed. I asked if they needed anything, and he said it was fine. Terry was my only real contact with the old house. A few weeks later, he told me that Janet had gotten the divorce papers from the lawyer. She just signed them and sent them back the same day. He didn't even realize she had read them. She stopped wearing makeup and started selling off her clothes and jewelry. She had a yard sale every other week and sold everything that wasn't nailed down. I gave my attorney power of attorney so she could sell the house whenever she wanted. I didn't want anything from the sale. She got a job at a bakery that was close to the house. Shortly before Terry graduated from high school, Janet put the house on the market. She priced it so low that she sold it almost immediately. The sale was contingent on her and Terry staying in the house until Terry graduated from high school. The buyers readily agreed. Janet found an apartment within walking distance of the bakery. It was a small apartment on the second floor, and she left all the furniture she didn't need in the house. She gave Terry a car to take her to college with her. Terry helped her move in and left for Auburn. By this time, she had gotten rid of almost everything in the old house. Terry said the apartment looked like a nun's room in a convent. While his mother never denied him anything, she was depriving herself of everything. I could tell he was worried about her. The 4 years flew by quickly. It was a 4-hour drive from my house to Auburn, and I hardly saw my son. He was busy with school and his friends, and I was spending too much time at work. Janet had the management company send me a check after the house was sold. It was for the full amount. She left nothing. I cashed the money and put it in a folder I set aside for her. I bought a small house and spent most of my time making repairs and improvements. I didn't date or socialize with anyone. I just wasn't interested. I wasn't interested in getting close to anyone. Graduation day came, and I went to watch my son receive his diploma. We took our seats for the ceremony, and Janet took the seat next to me. I was glad to see her, even after we parted ways. She looked good, but tired. She was a little older, and because of her lack of makeup and grooming, she seemed a little sad. We smiled at each other and said hello. They had just started handing out sheepskins, so there was no time for small talk. I don't think either of us knew what to say. It was over too quickly. The awkwardness of the moment was interrupted by the appearance of Terry. He was excited about getting his degree and was talking at a mile a minute. It was great to watch him enjoy his moment of glory. A few of his friends came up and introduced themselves, and then the whole company went to Gulf Shores to celebrate. Janet and I were left alone. "How did you get here?" I tried to break the ice. "By bus. I've got a round-trip ticket, and I've got to be back at the station by 6. Could you give me a ride?" "No problem. When?" "I took a week's vacation, but I can't stay here. I think I'll come back tonight and spend the rest of the week painting my apartment." "That sounds like fun." "What's my alternative?" She laughed. "You could stay at my place for a few days. I could even drive you home from there if you want. It's better than the bus." "Anything is better than the bus. Although I don't think going to your place would be a good idea. It would be too hard for both of us." We never talked. I got angry then and cut you off. I didn't give you a chance to explain anything, and for the past few years I've felt bad about it. Do you want me to tell you what happened? Tell you now after our lives are ruined? Is it too late? I think it is. What can I tell you now to make it right? You didn't listen then. Why are you listening now? I can't answer that. Even if we can't talk, I'll still enjoy your company for a few days. Are you sure you can't spare some time for me? I took a week's vacation, too. Do you have any luggage? No, just what I'm wearing. I wasn't planning on spending the night. We'll stop at Walmart. I'll buy you a couple changes of clothes, and you'll be all set. It's a 4-hour drive, and I'd really like some company. I don't see it as a good thing, but I'll give it a try. If you do anything to upset me, I promise I'll leave without a second thought. Fair enough. My car's over there. We were silent for the first few miles. We got off near Birmingham, and I bought her some underwear, pants, and a few tops. I also talked her into wearing sneakers, but she refused to buy makeup. I didn't insist. Just a hint. A little farther down the road, we had dinner at the Cracker Barrel. She always liked to eat there. We were moving up I-65 at a good speed when it opened up. To have sex? I looked at her. What kind of sex are we talking about? The answer to your last question was, to have sex. But I couldn't say it when you asked me that day. I don't know why. Either I was too embarrassed or I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I just couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. After you hung up on me, I realized that you already knew everything, and it was stupid of me to deny it. I tried to call you back, but you turned your cell phone off. That's when I realized my life was over. You broke my heart. I know that, and I don't know how to fix it. I lay awake so many nights trying to figure out how to fix it, and I couldn't come up with anything. After a few years, I decided there was nothing I could do to make things better. I couldn't think of anything to say. She seemed to be doing just fine on her own. If you knew what was going on, why didn't you stop it? I couldn't stop it. You were the only one who could have done it. You could have said something. No. If you knew I knew, you wouldn't have done it for the wrong reasons. Knowing you were caught or might be caught wasn't a good reason not to go through with it. You had to stop it because you knew it was wrong, not because you might get caught. You get the point? Yes, but I still wish you had said something. I did. Last phone call. You mean the one where you said you loved me? That's right. I felt like I gave you a chance to stop before you started. I gave you a chance to make a decision. She was quiet for a moment. It was a test, and I failed it. I was such a fool. I'm not going to argue. Did you love him? Gary? Heavens, no. Gary loved his wife as much as I loved you. We were just friends. I don't understand. Was it a crush or something? No, it wasn't like that. It was more platonic than anything else. Gary and I were just friends. We had no desire to make our relationship anything more than that. So how did you two end up in a motel to have sex? It's a long story. We still have an hour till Huntsville. Gary and I worked together for almost a year. As time went on, we talked about different things. One of those things was sex. During our conversation, it became clear that neither of us had ever had sex with anyone other than our spouses. We weren't complaining about sex with our spouses because we were both happy with the way things were, but we got curious. The more we talked about it, the more relaxed we became. I don't know which one of us brought it up, but eventually we started discussing the possibility of having sex with each other, just to see what it would be like. No strings attached, and it would be a one-time deal. It was more like two adults playing doctor, or maybe like, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's how it evolved. Have you ever wondered what the downside of that is? It never occurred to either of us. We got to the point where doing it was like going to the movies together. I don't know about Gary, but I didn't think you'd ever find out about it, so it wouldn't hurt you. I was wrong. I'm sorry. How did Gary's wife feel about it? She was going to divorce him. I went to her and explained it to her like I'm explaining it to you now. She wouldn't divorce, but I don't think their marriage was ever the same. Gary was fired along with me, but he protested. It went to arbitration. He claimed he didn't violate company policy because we never had sex. The board of directors didn't buy it. They moved to Baltimore, and I never saw them again. I was glad when we pulled up in front of the house. Our conversation was long over, and it had been a little tense. Some of it was hard for me to take in. I took Janet to my bedroom and took the guest room. After making sure she had everything she needed, I said goodnight. There would be more talking tomorrow. I hoped our next conversation would be more pleasant. The next morning, she was already waiting for me for breakfast. The first time in a long time, I didn't have to cook. So tell me about the sex with Gary. You asshole. You know there was no sex, and you also know why. I must have ruined your romantic evening. Actually, you know the situation, and although he brought wine and strawberries, it wasn't a romantic encounter. Don't make it any worse than it was. So, did you guys do anything? Oh, yeah. We answered a dozen phone calls and a dozen more knocks on the door. Some creepy asshole made everyone either call us or knock on the door. The closest we got to sex was when I took off my shoes. Did you have a bad time? It was the most miserable half hour of my life. While that biker was trying to sneak into the room to grab Gary, I managed to sneak out. When I saw my car gone, I cried. That's when Nancy pulled up. You called my sister, and worst of all, you called my mother. She still won't talk to me. I'm sorry if I ruined something that was so important to you. I take full blame for what I did. It was disgusting. Oh, no, don't. All the blame is on me, and if you think you can jump 5 years from now and take responsibility for everything that happened, you're crazy. It was my fault. It was my fault. It was my fault. And don't you ever try to take that away from me. I didn't flounder in agony all these years so you could take it from me. I feel partially responsible, and I have to take some of the blame. Don't do it. When I walked into that motel room, I lost all my self-respect. I can never get it back. At least you saved my virtue with your phone calls. I still have it, and I thank you for it every day. I only wish you had a way to do something ahead of time, but now I realize why you couldn't. It's sad, John. I love you, and I always have. I didn't mean to hurt you, and I'm truly sorry. I won't ask for your forgiveness because I don't feel I deserve it. Losing your love and trust has hurt me more than anything else you could have done to me. Janet, you never lost my love. I'm glad to hear that, John, but what about our union? I'm sorry, but it's gone, and I don't know how to get it back. I understand, and that's only fair. What are we doing for lunch? How about sushi? Sounds great. Are my clothes okay? We had a good time that day. After lunch, we did some more shopping to get Janet some clothes that wouldn't make her look like a nun. I even talked her into buying some lip gloss, but nothing too dramatic. We had a light dinner of soup, cheese, and crackers, and then sat at the table with a nice glass of wine. It was nice to see Janet getting back to her old self. The more time we spent talking, the calmer she felt. Are we going to have sex tonight, John? I don't know. I have some problems. What kind of problems? Well, I'm afraid that if we make love, I'll be thinking about you and Gary all the time. I'm a little worried because I don't know how it's gonna go. It's crazy, and you know it. Well, how do you know? I'll tell you how I know. About 30 years ago, when we first started dating, you told me that every time you saw me, you fantasized about Pam Kramer, the cheerleader. Do you remember that? Did I really tell you that? Yeah, of course you did. And every time we had sex for the next 4 or 5 years, all I could think about was you having sex with me and thinking about Pam Kramer. You're kidding, right? No, I'm not kidding. Now the shoe's on the other foot, and you can't handle it. I had to deal with it, and I don't understand why you can't. Come on, we all fantasize. Who's your dream lover? Okay. Most of the time it's you, even after we broke up. What do you mean, most of the time? Who's the rest of the time? You really want to know? You're not going to laugh? No, I promise. Mel Gibson. You're kidding. Not at all. I've always dreamed of having sex with Mel Gibson, and I don't think there's anything abnormal about it. He's a very desirable guy. Which brings up another question. Who have you fantasized about for the last 5 years when you were relieving tension? Mostly you. I think about you a lot. Same question for you. And the rest of the time? Well, sometimes I think about you and Gary together. You're a sick asshole. You fantasize about Gary and I having sex for pleasure. That sucks. Not really. After your date, I wondered why you wanted to have sex with Gary. I didn't have any answers, so I assumed he was a better lover than I was. I was sure I had failed as a partner in some way, and I convinced myself that you were seeking renewal. Okay, Chuckles. We're even. Now deal with this. I'm going to take a shower, and then we're going to have sex. You can think about Pam Kramer, and I'll think about Mel Gibson. It's all taken care of. Tomorrow morning, we'll go get my stuff, and I'll move in with you. Can you handle it? Are we getting married? No, I can't marry a man who doesn't trust me. Maybe in a couple years we'll talk about it again. Oh, I see. You want to stay single in case another guy like Gary comes along. One more remark like that, and I'll smack you upside the head. Now go and turn off the phones. I don't want to be interrupted. It only took about an hour to load her stuff into the car. Terry was right. She did get rid of almost everything. The remaining furniture she sold to the landlord for $200. When I finished loading the car, she walked over to the bakery and said she was leaving. Shortly after that, we pulled onto the highway, heading south. I looked at her and we both smiled. I have one more question. One last one. Okay. What is it? Where'd you get the Mel Gibson poster? The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Cheating and revenge. I can't believe my life has gone to hell in just 4 years. 4 years ago, my wife went to work at Gilbert Endeavors. Our kids had become teenagers and Sarah couldn't wait to get out of the house. At the time, an entry-level secretarial job seemed perfect. My name is Skip Trexler. My real name is Austin, but I've always been called Skip. I was what people would call wiry. I was of average height and weighed less than 140 pounds when I graduated from high school. I had no interest in any sports, especially competitive sports. The closest I came to anything athletic was long-range shooting. All through high school and college, I spent most of my non-academic time either shooting or reloading. After 8 years, I could consistently hit a 2-inch target from 100 yards away. My favorite gun was a Marlin 336C for a cartridge caliber. 2x19. This cartridge had been discontinued for many years, but I made my own from 30-30 cartridge cases with the neck down. Success at something like this gave me a sense of pride of accomplishment that I desperately needed. 2 important things happened during college. I met my wife Sarah and my future business partner Chuck Fuller. Other than that, it was kind of boring. I got a degree in geology, got married, and started a small surveying business with Chuck. Life was good. Chuck and I never worked for anyone. After college, we each invested $12,500 and started our own small surveying company. We focused on small jobs and lots of real estate deals. We didn't make a lot of money, but we were comfortable and happy. Chuck married a local girl 3 months after Sarah and me. My family had a cabin we called a bungalow in Schuylkill County on 160 acres. We held all our family gatherings there when I was younger. The Fullers had a real cabin on 640 acres in Potter County. Chuck and his family hunted there but didn't use it for anything else. That's all you need to know at this point. Like I said, my life started going to hell about 4 years ago. Gilbert Endeavors designed and manufactured exercise equipment. Its headquarters was local, but they had manufacturing plants and distribution centers all over the country. My wife, Sarah, started working there when our twin daughters, Marcy and Mercy, went to middle school. It seemed like a good idea at first. The hours were good, the pay was fair, and the location was convenient. The first year or so was perfect. GE hired Terry Ulrich, a retired NFL quarterback, to be the marketing manager and spokesperson for the company. Unfortunately, my wife worked in the marketing department. For 6 months, we were inundated with stories about the magnificent Terry Ulrich. My wife and daughters were crazy about his greatness. Fortunately, after about 6 months, the adoration seemed to wane. About the same time, Sarah started working overtime. Chuck and I both grew up in the area, so we knew a lot of people who worked at Gilbert. It turned out to be not hard at all to find out that Sarah and Terry Ulrich had become a couple. While their relationship was blossoming, our marriage was deteriorating. As Sarah and I grew apart, so did my relationship with my daughters. I never told her this. She began traveling more and more for business and promotional trips. I became a lowlife. Usually, but not always. She invited me to accompany her to parties and meetings where I was ignored for the rest of the evening. Sex was out of the question. How does a person endure such a life? Until Sarah started working, our family life was normal. We went on weekends and vacations as a family at least once a year. The girls took ballet lessons and played soccer. Sarah was active in PTA and Girl Scouts. We had pizza night every week. The only thing the girls didn't like was spending time in the bungalow. That was all in the past. Now it's all gone. Over the past few years, Sarah's conference retreats and meetings have gradually increased. Lately, on several longer trips, she has taken the girls with her. I was never invited or even asked if I wanted to go. I often overheard the girls telling their friends about what a great time they had. They never said anything when they knew I was within earshot. Terry Ulrich was never mentioned, although I knew he was at every outing. At the New Year's Eve party at the Gilberts, everything came to a head. Sarah had a hard time not inviting me. I didn't want to go. The humiliation of having to live with infidelity alone was bad enough. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to control myself if the situation got out of hand. I was right. The girls were all dressed to the hilt. Marcy and Mercy were excited because it was their first adult party. I didn't have a tux, so I just wore the best suit I had. When we arrived, there were several hundred people crowded around. Skip Trexler, glad to see you made it. Thanks for bringing your wife and beautiful daughters to our little gathering. Terry Ulrich seemed to smile, seeing the grimace on my face as he squeezed my hand. He finally let go of me, and I noticed Sarah smirking. The girls looked at me in disgust and quickly withdrew. It was the start of a bad evening. I drank one mug of beer and huddled it in a corner, trying not to embarrass my wife and daughters even more. I didn't say or do anything, and yet I had successfully ruined the start of their evening. Terry Ulrich was a big guy, really big. He was at least a foot taller than me and weighed 100 pounds more, all muscle. He was the epitome of a happy hand and a grandstand. My daughters crowded around the room, but my wife spent almost the entire evening by his side. Most of the time she held lightly onto his hand. A few lower-level people made feeble attempts to strike up a conversation with me. Several middle and upper-level executives noticed me and smirked or made sly remarks to their comrades that I felt were related to my cuckold status. I didn't hear any words, but it was clear what was going on. My beer had been replaced by a simple ginger ale, which I sipped slowly. I usually had pretty good self-control and prided myself on never losing my temper. A lot of people started dancing, and I noticed that the girls were having a good time, and my wife, too, with Ulrich, of course. Neither she nor the girls had spoken to me once in the last 3 hours. A small group of men and women were chatting away from the dance floor when one of the guys pointed out Sarah and Ulrich. They looked in my direction, started laughing, and quickly averted their eyes when they saw me looking at them. A few minutes later, they were still giggling. That was the end of my evening. I set my glass down, and as I headed for the door, I noticed Ulrich had his hands on my wife's ass, and she was caressing the back of his head. Before I knew it, she pulled his head down and sent him a big, sloppy kiss right in the middle of the dance floor. It took me less than 5 seconds to cross the room, turn Ulrich around, and hit him as hard as I could with my right from a U-turn. My arm hurt like hell, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up in the back of an ambulance. It was only a few minutes' drive to the emergency hospital, and I noticed that I was alone in the ambulance. I remembered being rolled into the emergency room. The next thing I remember is waking up in some sort of recovery area. Half an hour later, I was visited by a doctor who gave me an update on my condition. In addition to a broken arm, I had 3 broken ribs, a broken nose, 3 knocked-out teeth, and 2 loosened teeth. My jaw was wired shut and my right kidney was bruised. Ulrich finished him off with a good kick to the testicles, causing several blood vessels to be damaged. The doctor said I could be discharged in about 4 days, but I would have to spend at least 2 weeks in a rehab center. If I wanted, they could arrange for me to rehab at home. I chose the first option. It was well past noon when my wife and daughters finally showed up. Sarah looked annoyed and the girls looked bored. No one said anything. Since my jaw was tense, I didn't feel like starting any conversation. I could talk, but I didn't want her to know it. "Well, Skip, what do you have to say for yourself?" I quickly assessed her attitude and decided I didn't need this conversation. Instead of trying to answer her, I just muttered and pointed to my jaw. We must have sat there for a good minute before she spoke again. I was embarrassed, Skip. The girls were so humiliated that we had to leave before New Year's Eve. The whole evening was ruined, and for what? I should have known how I'd end up taking you out in public. I guarantee it won't happen again. She had no idea how right she was. I just sat there and stared at her. I couldn't even squeeze out a smile, so I did nothing. They lingered for a few minutes. Since I didn't react in any way, they eventually just got up to leave. Chuck showed up a couple hours later. We chatted for a few minutes. Yes, I could talk. And then he pulled out the local newspaper. I made the front page. Local NFL hero protects wife and daughters from abusive father. The attached story described how I assaulted my wife while she was dancing at the annual Gilbert Endeavors New Year's Eve party. Terry Ulrich burst into the room and held me down until I was taken away. Not exactly how I remembered it, but it's a story people will believe. Chuck and I talked for a couple hours and discussed several options. After he left, I refused dinner and asked for sleeping pills. I needed a good long rest. I spent most of the next day being checked, probed, and poked. All the damage had been discovered and dealt with accordingly. Now all I had to do was wait and heal. One of the hospital staff gave me a list of recommended rehab centers in the area. I chose one near Hamburg. Chuck showed up later that evening. I sold him my share of the company for $2,500. Of course, the handshake in the deal was the most important thing. I was still a part owner, but not on paper. All good things come in good time. We laughed about the fact that 1 week in rehab cost $2,500. Sarah and the girls never saw me again at the hospital. They actually came back the day after I moved into the rehab center, and I understand they were very annoyed that they had not been notified. They were very angry when they came to rehab and were denied access. I seemed to be able to indicate who could and could not visit when I logged in. One of the orderlies let me know they were trying to meet me. My ribs hurt like hell when I laughed. The worst part of my injuries was dealing with my teeth. Luckily, they had a dentist who could work on site for a certain fee. I decided to take advantage of that. The wound on my hand turned out to be not as serious as they initially thought. Although I had the opportunity to get out of rehab a little early, I decided to stay for the full 2 weeks. After 10 days, I was able to breathe fully again. It felt good. Sarah never tried to visit me again. On the second weekend in February, the National CrossFit Expo was held in Atlantic City. Sarah and the girls attended along with Terry Ulrich and the GE marketing team. Chuck and several of our staff spent the weekend moving my clothes and belongings to a bungalow in Schuylkill County. He made sure to pick up my Marlin and all my reloading supplies. 2 days later, I was comfortably settled into my new abode. That weekend, Chuck and his wife, June, came to visit. It seems Sarah was just looking for me at the office. No bank deposits had been made into the joint account since the beginning of the year, and Sarah wanted an explanation. Chuck spent half an hour trying to explain to her that not only did I no longer own part of the company, but I didn't even work there. In desperation, she ran out, threatening to see a lawyer. Within a couple weeks, I was functioning quite normally. My jaw situation wasn't as bad as they originally thought, so I was back to eating and drinking normally within a couple days. My dental problem was fixed, and I decided to leave my broken nose alone. I needed the little piece of character it added. The rest of the bruises and aches were healing normally. I did therapy and exercised as instructed. Chuck left me with one of the company trucks and a credit card. I also took a large amount of cash with me in case I needed it. I left my cell phone with Chuck. The bungalow was cozy, but only temporarily. I walked around a bit and started jogging leisurely. Terry Ulrich had a big house on Duryea Street just outside of town. It was a long, winding road leading up Penn Mountain. There were few houses there because it was difficult to build on the steep mountainside. It wasn't hard to find a house, and I was able to find some good, secluded vantage points. Every morning, I exercise and get in shape. In the afternoons, I do target shooting. I focus on inanimate targets. My Bushnell laser rangefinder was showing that I needed to be accurate at 133 yards. I'll be ready when I can consistently take an egg out from that distance. I bought a lot of eggs. I bought a muffler. I spend my evenings planning, adjusting, and reloading. I started growing a beard. Chuck came to see me about once every 2 weeks. Sarah stopped by the office a few times, still trying to find me. After 2 months, she gave up. Chuck always brought a few newspaper clippings with him. Turns out my wife and daughters were still enjoying the social life with their new benefactor. He must have been fully supporting her by now because I wasn't doing anything. Strangely, Sarah and the girls were still living in our old house, which I didn't realize. It was time to move on. I started heading back into town early in the morning to pick a good vantage point to watch Terry's house. He was a man of habit. I never expected such a big guy to be a swimmer, but he did 50 laps every morning. Naturally, the pool was heated. That weekend, I traveled to Potter County. The move from the bungalow to the cabin was quite welcome. No electricity, no running water, no cell phone signal. It was a 45-minute drive to the nearest Walmart store in Olean, NY. I didn't want to drive in the winter, so I stocked up on everything I needed for the next 4 months at least. If I forgot something or needed something, I could get it before the bad weather shut me down. Early Wednesday morning, I drove to the office and moved all my stuff from the truck into my Subaru Outback. I parked the company truck at a construction site at the base of the mountain and pulled up to my chosen vantage point. At this time of the morning, there were no other cars. I set up my tripod. I had one round in the camera and one in the tube, with the next 2 at the ready. 20 minutes later, Terry Ulrich came out for his morning swim. The first shot shattered his right ankle. Even with a silencer, it was very noisy this early in the day. 2 seconds later, his left knee exploded. I loaded the next 2 rounds and took out his left elbow. My final target was his right wrist, which I couldn't aim at because of his erratic movements, so I quickly collected my weapon and quietly left. 10 minutes later, I left the construction site and returned to the office to my waiting Subaru. I didn't return to the bungalow, but drove straight to Potter County. The first order of business was to clean the spring so I would have fresh water. Then I had to start gathering a good supply of firewood. Fortunately, the cabin was waterproof and well insulated. The LED lights were much better and cheaper than the old charcoal oil lamps that were there. Soon it was completely under control and I started shooting again, this time at paper targets. The first time I saw her was in the middle of the second week. A tall, lanky woman dressed in jeans, a flannel shirt, and a vest. Although she was far away, I could see she had a backpack or something on her back. She walked past on an old logging trail that stretched along an open area that served as a shooting range. 640 acres, and I still had no privacy. Of course, it was much more practical to build a cabin next to the road where I could bring materials. One day, when I had the opportunity, I pointed a scope at her. She had an elaborate crossbow hanging from her shoulder. I had no idea what she was doing with it, but I was curious. There was a small fire pit barbecue area on the stove, so I brought along an old galvanized coffee pot and some cookies. Yes, I baked some really good cookies. I felt like I was setting some kind of trap. 3 days later, my trap went off. "I beg your pardon. My name is Claire. I was hoping we could talk." She took me by surprise. I was stuttering a little, so I gestured for her to sit down. "Would you like some coffee?" It was the best I could do. She nodded, smiled, and took the crossbow off her shoulder before sitting down. "My name's Skip. I got here about a week or 2 ago. I've noticed you in the neighborhood a few times. I'm staying at a gatehouse about a mile from here. I try to walk every day and usually end up here." I handed her one of my famous cookies. "Are you going to be here long?" "I'm staying here until the end of the summer. And you?" "At least 4 or 5 months." She seemed to like my cookies, but I got the feeling she would have preferred cream and sugar in her coffee. She didn't say anything. I just kind of caught it. "Is this your property?" "No. It belongs to a friend of mine who lets me use it." "Do you hunt?" "No, not really. I used to shoot a little, but I haven't for years. Now I just do a little target shooting." I don't want to be intrusive, but you won't mind if I use this shooting range for a little practice. I haven't found any suitable places where I can use my bow." She had an accent I couldn't identify. It was either English, Australian, or Scottish. I didn't want to ask. "No, not at all. I think we could find something suitable for targeted support. Feel free to use it any time." She ate a second cookie. It felt really good. "I was just curious. I thought most people use compound bows nowadays. You have a curved bow, and it looks new. Take my word for it. It has better recurve." She used simple arrows for target shooting, but always carried 4 hunting arrows attached to the bow. That evening, I drove a few miles down the road and picked up 3 bales of hay. Thus began my summer with Claire Charles. Claire came every day and returned to her lodge every evening. The staff at the lodge had a tracker on her cell phone, so they always knew where she was. It was the beginning of our second week when a heavy summer squall hit us. We huddled on the cabin porch, laughing and bantering about her dilemma. Without saying anything, she pulled out her cell phone and called the lodge. She informed them that due to the weather, she would not be able to return tonight and that she had found a comfortable place to stay for the night. I was both surprised and delighted. Thus, my platonic relationship with Claire Charles became intimate. From then on, we alternated our sleeping quarters. Highlands Lodge was totally out of place in Potter County. It was posh and very expensive. Most of their guests were from across the ocean. Claire's family was from Cornwall. The Highland had hot showers, plentiful food, and laundry facilities, which I took full advantage of. Sex in the wild is fun, but it's much nicer when you have everything you need. We spent less and less time at the shooting range. A couple weeks later, while Claire and I were busy eating lunch, Chuck and June arrived. June seemed especially happy to have a companion, and even more so when she realized it was a fulfilling relationship. We kept a low profile for the first few hours, and then June and Claire went off to chat. After the tragic attack on Terry Ulrich, I became the first suspect. This turned out to be a much bigger problem for Terry than he realized. The press wanted to know why I was the prime target of interest. The more they delved into it, the worse it got for Terry and my wife. While the focus was on finding me, the press quickly shifted to the relationship between Terry and my wife. 3 weeks later, Terry Ulrich was no longer a representative of Gilbert Endeavors. Police visited the bungalow in Schuylkill County and found it empty. They had no credit card leads, no phone calls, and no idea where I might be. They never asked Chuck about the cabin. Chuck mentioned that Sarah had come to the office several times in a vain attempt to find out where I was. She seemed a little desperate as her source of money began to dry up. According to Chuck, it appeared that Terry had lost interest in her and was blaming her for her problems. I didn't have a plan for the next step. I couldn't go back, and I had no other options I wanted to explore. At this point, I was drifting. As we approached the end of the year, I felt myself becoming complacent. I was happy and content with Claire, but I should have been paying attention to my real life. It was a cool fall day, and I was alone in the cabin. Something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I had just warmed up the wood stove and brewed coffee when the door suddenly opened. Terry Ulrich was as big and ugly as the last time I'd seen him. He stood in the open doorway with a wide grin on his face and an old police SWAT pistol in his right hand. He seemed to be standing unsteady and holding his left arm at a strange angle, as if he was trying to keep his balance. We just stood there looking at each other. I expected some profound words of revenge, but nothing followed. "Coffee? Asshole. I spent over $10,000 to find you. No, I don't want any coffee." "Well, what can I do for you?" "I know it was you, you sneaky little weasel. Your wife told me you did a lot of target shooting. I hope there's 911 service here, because you're gonna need it." His face swelled and reddened as he spoke. He seemed to be driving himself to some sort of frenzy. Suddenly, a shocked expression appeared on his face. He dropped the gun and dropped to one knee. Terry Ulrich rolled over on the floor and howled at the top of his voice. About 12 inches of crossbow arrow was sticking out of his left buttock. The other 6 inches was buried deep and solid. Claire just stood in the doorway and smiled. We ran most of the way back to Highland. I didn't take anything with me from the cabin. It took Claire about 15 minutes to load all her stuff into the rented Land Rover. We laughed the whole time like a couple of high school kids. We finally calmed down to a fairly normal state when we reached US 80. Breakfast was comforting and hearty. I'm assuming he's already retrieved the arrow and gone to the hospital. I don't think so. He should call 911. I shot him with one of those hunting arrows with the 3-bladed head. It needs to be cut out. It can't be pulled out. He'll probably have to lie on his stomach on a gurney when he goes to the emergency room. That must be awkward. Well, Ms. Claire, looks like we're in big trouble now, and it's all your fault. She flicked her fork full of scrambled eggs and laughed. After breakfast, I called Chuck, and Claire called someone else. I filled him in on the situation, and he seemed to find it quite amusing. I told him we were going to Ocala, Florida, where my grandparents lived. He chuckled slightly because he knew I only said that to cover his ass. While I was on the phone, Claire walked over and took my wallet out of my pocket. She went back to her seat and continued talking while I bought goodies for our trip. I didn't know where we were going, but I sensed that Claire had a plan. She didn't tell me anything, and I didn't ask. I was content in my ignorance and trusted her. It was a long day. We finally checked into a beautiful bed and breakfast in the Wisconsin valleys. We were wrecked from the road and just slept soundly. Breakfast was great, and 4 hours later we were at the Walmart supermarket in Duluth. Claire had her stuff, but I left with nothing. I had no idea what was on her mind, and she seemed to be having fun keeping me in the dark. I got a new closet, and Claire got a big bag of snacks. Ever since I was a boy, I had dreamed of a canoe trip on the lakes. I finally managed to make it happen. Everything was arranged when we arrived. The outfitter was even going to take care of Claire's rental car. That gave me a hint that we probably wouldn't be coming back. It was intriguing and exciting. I couldn't wait to see what else she had in store for me. Before we left, I made one last call to Chuck. Skip, what, did you do it? It's all over the news here about Ulrich's latest debacle. Even some of the national outlets are picking up on it. Chuck, I have no idea what you're talking about. I heard June laughing in the background. Well, his media image is dropping like a lead balloon. He can't seem to do anything right. Nothing like this could happen to a nicer guy. I've always wanted to say that. By the way, Skip, divorce is a good move. Sarah didn't see that coming, and it really hit her hard. I don't know how you did it, but it seems to be working. She has no idea what to do, and she has no money. Chuck, trust me. I'm not kidding. I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never even seen a lawyer. Are you sure about the divorce? Yep. She waved it in my face and ranted about it just this morning. Well, it was nice to get some good news for a change. By the way, can't you stop by the cottage and have someone pick up my stuff and car? No problem. Where are you now? Moss Bluff, Florida. I'm looking for a trailer to rent. Claire was standing on the dock waving at me. The canoe was loaded to the gills. I thanked my parents for making me go to Boy Scout camp when I was younger. At least I didn't feel like a complete idiot in the canoe. For the next 6 days, we paddled the lakes. We had a new camp each night. Claire knew where she was going and used her cell phone GPS to get there. I was with her and enjoyed the trip. The best part of the trip was that we enjoyed sex under the stars. The next day at noon, our adventure continued. A man met us at a small dock on a remote road. He and Claire hugged and spoke in French. After about half an hour, he handed Claire the keys to the truck along with a large envelope. We got our stuff out of the canoe and moved down the road. I looked out the back window and saw him pushing off from the dock. I sat behind the wheel, and Claire started going through the envelope. I guess I better get used to calling you Clinton. Of course, I threw her a strange look. She giggled and handed me a Canadian driver's license with my picture on it. The name on the driver's license was Clinton Barfield. You're kidding, right? No. You're Clinton Barfield now, and you have a new Canadian passport. She waved it proudly in front of my face. We're in Canada? Of course we are, silly. 4 days later, we landed in Newquay. 2 hours later, we were at Claire's family home near St. Austell. It was like I'd been born here. I felt comfortable and satisfied. I was very anxious about meeting Claire's family. The mansion was huge. Her father asked me to join him in the study. An elegant walnut armoire stood against the far wall. I watched with interest as he reached inside and pulled out a rifle. He held it out to me and smiled. It was my Marlin 336C chambered. I realized I was home. I never saw or heard from Sarah or the girls again. Chuck and June received strange Christmas cards every year from Mr. and Mrs. Clinton Barfield. They had no idea. This year's card will have a picture of us with 3 kids on it. I'm sure he'll figure it out. Was there ever really a Terry Ulrich? The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you!